Hello, I'm Chylli from Channel Chylli, also known as Try, and we are back with more Saya no Uta. I don't have much else to say, so let's just get right back into it. I think I should have clicked a load, shouldn't I? Alright, well that worked pretty well. When she arrives at the Sakisara house, Omi first takes a deep breath to calm herself. Her anger does not vanish entirely, of course, but at least now she can hear herself think. While waiting for a response from the intercom, she looks over the patch of yard that she can see from outside the gate. Even Omi isn't normally one to complain about other people's housekeeping, but this is going too far. The grass is growing wild and there are piles of dead leaves scattered everywhere. It doesn't just look unattended, it looks like an uninhabited ruin. It's still light out, but every window has its storm shutters tightly sealed. Omi guesses that they've been closed since morning. What kind of life is Fuminori leading? Even if he's living alone, he can't be neglecting his housework forever. And is it just her imagination, or does something stink like rotten meat? It couldn't be coming from the yard, could it? There's still no response, so she presses the buzzer a second time, and a third, and a fourth. Finally, after this has gone on for over 10 minutes, Omi loses her patience and opens the cover of the intercom. As she expected, the power has been disconnected. Perhaps Fuminori has a good reason for shutting out the world, but Omi can only see it as a lack of respect for others. Her anger rekindled, she pushes the gate open and stomps to the yard to the front door. Given the state of his intercom, she doubts that Fuminori will respond to a knock, so Omi decides to just open the door and go in shouting. And if the door is locked, she'll just have to... Surprisingly, the doorknob turns easily in her hand, and the enraged Omi finds herself throwing the door open wider than she intended. Oh no, this is bad. Fuminori has shown violent tendencies towards his friends previously, and I'm kinda scared for what'll happen to Omi if she just barges in here. Her nostrils are instantly assaulted by a choking stench.
Nani?
As Omi stands petrified on the threshold, the cowbell hanging on the inside of the door chimes loudly. A moment later, Omi can't believe her ears. The voice she just heard could not have been human, yet its intonations were too complex for an animal she can imagine.
誰かいるの?
She calls out to the end of the hallway from which the voice came. There is no response. So that was obviously Saya. Instead, she hears the sound of something soft and wet flopping its way deeper into the house. Finding it difficult to place a meaningful image of the voice she just heard, Omi stares blankly at the empty vestibule. There's nothing there, not even Fuminori's shoes, which can only mean that he's still outside somewhere wearing them. The house should be empty. But then what was that voice just now? Her anger has vanished as if it was never there. Nevertheless, Omi sets foot into the hallway, leaving the door open so that the cowbell won't ring. The floor creaks, setting her nerves on edge. Omi isn't sure why she's acting like a burglar, but something tells her to make as little noise as possible. The potency of the stink inside the house makes the whiff she caught outside pale in comparison. It's sickening, like rotten fish guts. Has food been left to spoil in the kitchen? She hears a bubbling sound up ahead. Stepping gingerly on the creaking floorboards, Omi makes her way to the end of the hallway. She finds rooms on both sides of her, one lit, the other dark. She chooses to look into the lit room. It's the kitchen, lit by what must be the only window in the house not covered by a storm shutter. The sound she heard was the pot boiling on the stove, and on the chopping board next to it lie a butcher's knife and some half-diced carrots. A perfectly normal household scene, with the light of the setting sun making everything the color of decomposing fruit. Something is wrong. Who was cooking here, and where did they go?
誰かいないんですか?
Omi calls, regretting it immediately as she realizes that her voice is shaken. As her words echo vainly through the silent house, she begins to feel foolish and defenseless. Suddenly, she feels something cold seeping through her pantyhose. She timidly reaches down to touch her feet. Her fingertips come away, covered with a viscous, olive-green slime, like the filthy water from a tank long clogged with algae and dead fish. The whole floor is covered with it. It must be the source of the stench. Omi now wishes that she had worn her shoes inside. Manners be damned. When she lifts back ruefully the way she came, she realizes that her current position is not visible from the entrance. This kitchen must be where that strange voice came from. The next room is probably the den. As she expected from the closed storm shutters, it's pitch black inside. Omi wants nothing more than to flee this house, but that would mean turning her back to the darkness, and that she simply cannot bring herself to do. Moved by some irrational compulsion, Omi sets foot into the den. It is too dark to see anything, and the stink is far worse than before. She slides her hand along the wall, feeling for the light switch, hoping. Finding it much sooner than expected, she flips it on like it's her last hope. The colors, so many colors. The purple of entrails, the brown of rotting meat, the crimson of fresh blood, the yellow of fat. These colors and more that cannot be described color every inch of the room in maddening array. The colors say all that needs to be said about the painter's hatred, malice, and insanity. Omi's legs give out from the shock, sending her to the floor. Slime immediately soaks through her jeans, its cold tendrils creeping up her leg's crotch and her neck. Her hand flies to her neck where it's greeted by another drop of chilly slime. Above her, something is dripping down on her head. Making perhaps the worst decision of her life, Omi looks up. The predator chilling on the ceiling, poised to leap upon its prey. She sees it in every detail. Her mouth and nose are sealed before she can scream, and her belly is torn open as something enters to feast on her innards. But by the time she feels any of this, Omi has already gone mad. Well, that's one friend dead. I bit the bullet and tried to take the train, but the rush hour crowds were so bad that I had to get off halfway and walk. I'm running pretty late. Is Saya worried? I hope she's not mad. When I enter the yard, I realize that the front door has been left wide open. Light from the living room is seeping into the hallway, and I hear what sounds like someone smacking their lips. There's also a tantalizing fragrance in the air. Is it Saya? I consider calling out to her, but decide to enter in silence instead. Something smells strange, though not unpleasant. The aroma is quite soothing, in fact. It reminds me of Saya's hair. At first, I'm surprised by what I see in the living room. The floor is covered in what looks to be some kind of grass. Probably the source of the herb-like smell, and there are fruits or vegetable-like balls of varying size scattered everywhere.
Saya.
Saya turns around, her eyes wide with surprise. She then looks away sheepishly like a child caught at some prank.
何を食べてるんだい？
これはその
She stammers so flustered that I suddenly feel bad for sneaking up on her. Remembering that she never ate food in front of me before, I realize that she must be quite embarrassed.
一ついいかな？
Okay, so Fuminori almost certainly views things in reverse to their actuality. He views the world as disgusting gore, and he views gore as normal stuff. Because right now, Saya is almost certainly a monster. And the grass and fruit, he is saying, is almost certainly Omi's corpse, of which Saya is eating. I scoop up the nearest fruit thing and pop it into my mouth, ignoring Saya's attempt to wave me off. It has a strange texture, soft and pliable like a peach or pear. When I bite into it, with my back teeth, the succulent juice fills my mouth, combined with a sharp, strong fragrance. It's unlike anything I've ever tasted.
何か味付けとか調理してあるのかこれ？
調理ってほどのことは、さばいてからちょっと溶かして食べやすくしただけで、ほとんど生なんだけど。
Oh, ew. So she, kills her prey and then melts it before she eats it? That's kind of like how spiders work, isn't it? They inject their saliva or venom into the creature and then have it dissolve so they can drink it, rather than eating its flesh. I pick up a different lump, this one consisting of a fruity flesh around a hard core. Tearing a chunk off of my mouth, I find that it has a similar taste to the last one.
ねえ、大丈夫？それって。
僕でも食べられる味だ。っていうよりうまいよ、これ。
そうなの？
At first, Saya looks dumbstruck, but then she bursts out laughing.
そうなんだ。ふみのりもこういうのが好きだったんだ。なんだ、あれこれ工夫して頑張ってた私がバカみたい。
さやっていつもこういうものを食べてたのか。
こんな大物は久しぶりだけどね。近所の公園とかで取ってくれるやつ。
Does she mean children? Is Saya a child eater? There's an impressive nature preserve not too far from here. I've never heard about fruits like these growing there, but, well, of course. They only look like fruits to me. They're really something else.
ごめんね。一番美味しいところはさっきさやが全部食べちゃった。
いいよ、また今度で。でもこれで明日から一緒に食事ができるね。
Saya seems really happy. I'm happy too, of course. Eating with someone is much more fun than eating alone, and it makes the food taste better too.
まだまだいっぱいあるし、食べきれない分は冷やせば 2,3 日は大丈夫だよ。ちょっと味は落ちるんだけどね。
じゃあ早めに片付けておこうか。
Sealing the small fruits in Tupperware, and the large ones in pots and bowls. Sai and I store the remaining fruit in the refrigerator. Thinking of tomorrow's dinner fills me with anticipation. I feel that little by little I'm starting to regain the joy of living. Saya will guide me. With her I can live on. True Scary Stories, Hospital Edition. Chapter 4, The Monster in the Hospital. A medical student relates his shocking experiences. Will you believe him or not? Strange things started happening at the hospital around the end of last spring. It began with patients waking up in the middle of the night screaming. They all spoke of terrifying nightmares, and many of them had to be sedated. Some patients even transferred to other hospitals because of it. The weirdest thing was that they'd all had the exact same dream. A dream about some horribly disgusting monster staring down at them from their bedside. But the really strange stuff started happening after that. There used to be a lot of stray cats around campus looking for scraps from the students. One day, the cats suddenly disappeared, and it wasn't that they'd stopped coming. It was more that they'd vanished from the area entirely. So when she was talking about small things at wherever she was getting her food at, was she talking about humans or animals? Then she said small. I was thinking humans, because I wasn't sure if she ate animals. But now I'm thinking it's more that she was eating animals that showed up there. And then people stopped walking their dogs around. According to rumors, the dogs were refusing to go anywhere near the school. Eventually, things started going missing in the hospital. Organs, to be precise. Transplant organs kept disappearing from storage. People came close to losing their jobs over it. And it wasn't just 2 or 3 times that it happened. They tried to keep it from the students, but we heard it was a lot worse than that. People started saying there was something living in the hospital. The janitors would find strange messes that could only have been made in the middle of the night, traces of something that had crawled down the hallway or weird stains caused by something dripping through the ceiling. The late shift nurses talked about hearing strange noises on the same night that patients woke up screaming. There's one last story, one that you can never mention inside the hospital. One day, the obstetrics department went crazy. They said a newborn had disappeared in the night. If that were true, the police would have come and it would have been all over the news. But they say the big shots managed to make it go away. It's just a rumor, of course. These strange incidents suddenly stopped towards the end of summer. Now there are almost no patients complaining of nightmares, and the cast have started coming back to campus. But still, what happened in the hospital that summer? Even now, just thinking about it gives me creeps. So that was in summer, and now it's near winter? So that would have been when Saya left to live with Fuminori. That's really interesting info.
おかけになった電話は
ダメだ。
電波の届かない場所にあるか、電話にかかっていないためかかりません。
This is the third day in a row that they haven't been able to get in touch with Omi. There's no sign that she returned to her apartment, and even our family doesn't know anything. Her parents have already filed a missing persons report.
まあ、あいつのことだからな。何事もなかったみたいに、ひょっこり顔出しそうな気もするんだが。
うん。だといいけど。
Yo replies with a gloomy expression. She's worried about Omi, of course, but the incident with Fuminori 3 days ago must still be weighing on her as well. Yo hasn't seen Fuminori since then, and Fuminori hasn't made any efforts to approach her or Koji. 4 people used to meet in this cafeteria between classes, and now there are only 2.
ねえ、トノくん、もう一度考えてみようよ。どこかオウミちゃんの行きそうな場所に心当たりない？
いや、一通りは確かめたしな。
Koji answers evasively. It's a lie, of course. Koji knows where Omi planned to go that evening, but he doesn't want to bring Fuminori up in front of Yo. Their awkward silence is mercifully broken by the bell signaling the start of next period.
じゃあ、俺行くわ。
うん。
Unless Koji is mistaken, Yo is supposed to have class next period too, but she just sits there staring off into space. Unable to come up with anything to say, he leaves the cafeteria reluctantly. Both Omi's disappearance and Yo's depression both worry Koji, and both problems lead back to the exact same place.
海のりは一体。
When Omi went missing, the first thing he did was question Fuminori. After all, the last time he'd seen her was just before she stormed off to give Fuminori a piece of her mind. Fuminori responded with unequivocal denial and acted like he hadn't the slightest idea why Omi had gone to see him. Perhaps that was only natural, as he was unaware that Omi and Koji had witnessed him reduce Yo to tears. Did Omi even make it to Fuminori's house? She had been riding a wave of emotion when she'd left, and might have calmed down and changed her mind halfway there. Or perhaps she ran into trouble on the way? Koji concluded, or more accurately convinced himself, that one of these possibilities was the truth. Self-consciously denying the one remaining possibility, that Fuminori was lying, that he had met Omi and was involved with her disappearance. Well, he never did meet her, and he never talked to her or realized why she was there, so he is telling the truth. When questioned by the police, Koji told the truth about Omi's destination, only up to the train station, maintaining that he had no idea where she planned to go after that. He wanted to cooperate with the search, of course, but Omi couldn't have made it to Fuminori's house. Fuminori said it so himself, didn't he? In that case, he told the police everything they needed to know. Not wanting to get the still fragile Fuminori involved, he forced himself to accept this flimsy logic. But the conflict has built up inside him without his notice, leaving unanswered suspicion to fester in his mind. Koji is deep in thought, paying no attention to his surroundings, but perhaps this is what allows him to catch sight of his friend's back through the crowd of milling students.
Fuminori?
At first, Koji assumes that he's heading to the lecture hall, but it soon appears that he's instead going home. Strange. Medical students would have required courses in the afternoon. Though he is initially surprised, Koji's hesitation lasts for only a second. He follows his friend, taking care to stay far enough behind that he won't be noticed. Fuminori wasn't going home, as became obvious when he boarded a train heading in the opposite direction. Koji's next guess was that he was going to see his doctor at the T University Hospital, but Fuminori rode straight through the closest station.
どこに向かってる?
At first, Koji felt ashamed for tailing his friend like this, but his conscience fell silent as Fuminori's actions grew more mysterious. The stranger it gets, the closer Koji gets to discovering the truth behind Fuminori's sudden transformation. Any knowledge would be welcome, no matter how slight. Even Koji is beginning to think that there must be more behind Fuminori's change than the accident alone. He wants a more satisfying answer, one that will help him decide whether Fuminori can still be trusted. Fuminori gets off at a small station in a nondescript suburb of Tokyo. Koji follows, trying not to lose sight of him amid the other disembarking passengers. The area is quite desolate, with only a small bookstore, a convenience store, and a market in front of the train station. It's easy for Koji to keep Fuminori in view. This neighborhood was carved out of the Fuji foothills, and here and there remain steep inclines and wooded areas that escaped assimilation. Koji is amazed that such a quiet place exists less than an hour out of central Tokyo. Fuminori seems to know these streets. He moves quickly and purposefully through the suburban community, his eyes fixed straight ahead. Before long, Fuminori reaches a house. Without ringing the bell or even knocking, he opens the door and vanishes inside, leaving Koji to wonder how Fuminori can treat the house as his own. After waiting to see if Fuminori comes back out, Koji approaches the gate and checks the nameplate. Oh guy, it reads. Koji has never heard of anyone by that name among Fuminori's acquaintances. Next, his attention is drawn to the thick wad of leaflets sticking out of the mail slot. This, coupled with the general dilapidated feel of the place, suggests that it has been abandoned for some time. A small playground about 2 blocks away provides an adequate vantage point from which to watch the house. To watch the front of the Ogai home. Fortunately, it does not appear to be the sort of house that has a rear exit. Koji settles down on a bench to begin his stakeout. I should have brought more smokes. 1 hour passes, and then another, but there remains no sign of movement around the Ogai residence. Soon twilight settles upon the neighborhood. After Koji's 1 pack of cigarettes runs out, the stakeout becomes a battle against mounting impatience. He kills time by redialing Omi on his cell, and sending her short text messages. But his efforts are futile, as he knew they would be. When the sky begins to turn deep blue and the streetlights come on, Fuminori eventually emerges from the house and heads back towards the station with the same hurried stride. After some brief consideration, Koji decides that right now, investigating the house is more important than tailing Fuminori. He rings the doorbell just to make sure, and for receiving the expected silence in response, he checks to make sure that no one is watching and turns the doorknob. The door is not locked. The moment he enters the house, stale air thick with mold and dust fills Koji's nostrils. It is the unmistakable smell of a house that has long lain untouched. There is also a faint hint of something else in the air. Something reminiscent of damp sewers and fetid cisterns. Flipping the light switch does nothing. The power must be cut off. Koji uses a cigarette lighter to illuminate the immediate area. In the thick dust covering the floor, he sees several brand new trails of footprints that could only have been made by shoes. Fuminori's. Koji decides to follow suit and dispense with courtesy. He enters with his shoes on. The lighter's flickering flame pushes back to the deadly silence and gloom of the house. Koji is surprised to see evidence of life remaining. Everything from furniture to tableware and appliances. Nothing seems to be missing. The thickness of the dust suggests the house has been empty for several months, which means that the owner must have left with little more than the clothes on his back. Could he have gone to a long vacation? The calendar in the den is still turned to April. Empty and silent, yet still exhibiting signs of the life that once lived there. The house reminds Koji of a passenger ship, entombed at the bottom of the sea. In the graveyard-like quiet, a sinister thought suddenly enters his mind. No one is living here, but that does not have to mean that the owner left. Maybe he was murdered, and his rotting corpse is right under Koji's feet. He finds himself wanting a stronger light. A flashlight in his hand would make him feel much better. Koji follows Fuminori's footsteps to the 2nd floor, where he begins to catch the scent of paper in the stale air. It is the smell of old books, instantly recognizable to anyone who has worked in an antique bookstore or library. The first room on the 2nd floor turns out to be a study, its towering shelves packed with a vast number of books that Koji fears for the stability of the floor. As a medical student himself, he is able to discern at a glance that the study belongs to a medical professional, and a high-level one at that. Judging by the content of the books, a smorgasbord of technical volumes far beyond the normal, a simple student's understanding. The owner's interests lie more with medical research than with clinical practice. Fuminori must have spent most of his time here. The scattered dust suggests that he was searching for something, and the contents of the desk drawers are in obvious disarray. A small pile of books, stacked on the side table, catches his eye. Being next to the desk, they must have been the most frequently read. Their nature could shed some light on the character of the person who worked here. Koji frowns as he examines the 3 books. These are scientific texts like the rest, but all the leather-bound Western tomes like the sort you would find in a rare bookstore. The titles are meaningless to him. Trait de chiffre appears too serious. Semiotics, but Ars Magna Ultima is some kind of treatise on divination. And then there's the Voynich manuscript, which looks like some sort of picture book. When he pages through it, he finds the text utterly incomprehensible. Maybe it's some kind of cipher? Whatever they are, they clearly have nothing to do with medicine, refuting Koji's earlier guess that the Sogai was a doctor. Looking down, Koji suddenly notices the glint of something black and metallic underneath the chair. A pocket-sized flashlight, quite out of place among these dusty books. Fuminori must have brought it in. With relief, Koji exchanges his lighter for the flashlight. His tiny body emits a powerful white beam that casts away the darkness. His courage restored, he decides to explore the rest of the house. Koji notices something strange, something that was not visible in the lighter's weak flame. The slime. Dark oily stains are everywhere. The stains are especially thick around the doorknobs and the stair banisters, like someone grasped them with hands wrapped in greasy cloth. So yeah, Saya was obviously here. Looking closer, he sees places where slime was splashed low on the walls, almost as if a wet mop was run violently across the floor. Could Ogai have made these marks? If so, how? Parsley begins to feel sick as he imagines a man shambling through the house with slime dripping from his body. Finding the bedroom next to the study, Koji checks the closet on a hunch. He discovers 2 empty suitcases, not what one would leave behind when going on a long vacation. A sudden chill runs through him. Whoever was living here is still somewhere inside the house. Suppressing the urge to flee, Koji goes back downstairs to check their first floor. If he finds a corpse, he'll have to call the police right away. He might get away with trespassing if he reports it first, but if they find the body later, it will be awfully hard to explain his fingerprints all over the house. The flashlight reveals the den to be covered in even more slime than the rest of the house. The sofa looks as though it was drenched from the bottom of a swamp. In the kitchen, Koji takes one look at the sink and decides not to get any closer. He doesn't want any more fuel for his imagination. He reaches the door to the bathroom. A common scene from TV dramas flashes through his head. A body with slit wrists floating in a bathtub full of water. And wasn't there a movie where a hitman disposes of his victim in a bathtub filled with a lie? Koji braces himself for the worst and opens the door slowly, then shines his light inside the ceramic bathtub that appears from the darkness like a white ghost. Bones. A mountain of bones, black with dry flesh and blood. Koji puts one hand against the wall to steady himself as his legs threaten to buckle. Something is wrong, he realizes as he tries desperately to get his thoughts in order. The bones are too small, and there are too many of them. Oh, is this where Saya keeps her animal corpses after she eats them? They aren't human. After taking several deep breaths to calm himself, Koji enters the bathroom and examines the tub. The bones are piled atop each other like fallen leaves. They appear to be from small animals, perhaps cats or dogs. Even so, the quantity is mind-boggling. How many bodies would it take to produce this many bones? The bones have all been separated from one another, so it doesn't look like bodies were just thrown into the tub and left to rot. Each bone is covered with deep grooves, marks left by teeth biting through flesh. Koji's sanity won't let him consider the possibility that a human could have done this. The owner of this house must have kept some kind of carnivorous animal as a pet, giving it the bones of small animals to eat and disposing of the remains in the bathtub. You know, that actually makes sense. Saya calls Ogai her father. Is it possible that he, summoned or created her? And he was the one feeding her these small animals before he went missing? But why not dispose of the leftovers properly? They could have just been thrown out with the garbage, or was there something keeping him from leaving the house? The relief Koji felt when he realized that the bones were human is once again under attack. In the first place, what the hell was Fuminori doing here?
どうした、コウジ。
Oh shit. Koji whirls around, his light revealing Fuminori's expressionless face.
不法侵入だぞ、コウジ。
お前だって同じだろうが。
Oh god, I finally sneezed. I felt like I've needed to sneeze for a little bit, but I haven't been able to. Koji replies, barely managing to speak over the pounding of his heart. Fuminori pushes past Koji and looks into the bathtub. He doesn't even flinch at the sight of the bones.
僕はこの家の人と知り合いなんだ。頼まれて探し物をしに来ただけさ。
知り合いって、いつから？一体何者なんだ？
Koji doesn't want to believe that the old friendly Fuminori could have had contact with the denizens of this house.
いずれお前にも紹介するよ。僕の恩人とも言える人だから。
He says, turning to leave without even a glance at Koji.
おい、Fuminori!
Koji runs after Fuminori. His heart is finally beating normally
お
again.
前まさか近頃様子がおかしいのはその知り合いっていうやつのせいなんじゃ。
Yeah, that's gonna make him mad. Standing in the entrance, Fuminori glares coldly at Koji over his shoulder. The utter lack of emotion in his eyes gives Koji pause.
僕の後をつけてきたんだね、コウジ。
Koji swallows. What can he say?
そういうのは迷惑だ。二度とやらないでもらいたい。
ああ、
Fuminori walks away without another word, leaving Koji alone in the entrance. Up until this very moment, concern for his friend was still at the forefront of his mind. Now, however, that concern is swiftly giving way to a growing sense of dread. Does the Fuminori he knew no longer exist? Was the person who just stared Koji down like an imposter wearing Fuminori's skin? Koji has begun to believe that it might be so. What a nuisance. Why does he insist on interfering? If he had only spoke with me and to exchange pleasantries, then I could bear it. But now he's sticking his nose into my business just to satisfy his curiosity. Koji is a perfect example of someone who thinks that it's always good to take an interest in other people's affairs. He probably thinks that he's doing me a favor by prying into my life. He couldn't be more wrong. And if he keeps this up, I might have to find some way to deal with him. Like Saya said, I have to keep my search for Dr. Ogai a secret. Koji could ruin everything. I didn't have time to fully investigate the Ogai residence today. At this rate, it will probably take several days just to go through the study. Saya didn't believe that I'd find anything to help with the search, but I think there's still a lot to explore. Who knows what I'll discover? The problem is Koji. He knows about the house now. Will he make things difficult? A hair-raising voice calls as I'm about to pass through my gate. Suppressing a shudder, I put on a fake smile and turn to face the writhing mass of rotten flesh that is staring at me with bulging eyes. Of course, this is my next-door neighbor, Suzumi. A middle-aged painter, I think. He spends all day at home with his wife while his wife works. I haven't had much contact with him since the accident. Why is he suddenly talking to me now?
Hi. おかげさまで。
What is this? Did he stop me just to deliver a lecture?
まあそうですね。苦労してます。ええ。でもまだ学生の身ですし、蓄えには限りがあるんで、そういう浪費はちょっと。
The flesh beast undulates foully, as though it should have something to say. The sight of it is bringing me close to the edge.
あ、いえ、お構いなく。一人でもなんとかなりますから。
Now I get it. He's worried about the unsightliness of my house might diminish the image of his own. Damn slob. I flash a token smile, then retreat behind the safety of my gate. I can feel Suzumi's eyes pouring into my back all the way to the front door. Why won't everyone stay out of my life? I just want to live together with Saya, alone where no one will ever bother us. Suzumi Yosuke sighs in annoyance as he watches the neighbor boy retreat into his house. What's with his attitude? Even while talking, he kept his eyes averted as if to avoid looking at something repulsive. Has he always been such an unpleasant young man? No, of course not. When his parents were still alive, he had been a normal youth, a little shy but sensitive and caring. It must be the stress of his sad situation. If it continues to build, he might start developing serious mental problems. Or is it too late already? Yosuke wonders as he glances wearily at this Sakisara yard. Even during dinner, Yosuke couldn't shake the neighboring house from his mind.
どうしたのあなた。難しそうな顔して。
今日ね、隣の家の息子に会ったよ。
お隣のって、ふみのりお兄ちゃん？
ああ、庭のこと一言言っておいた。
そうよね。せめてあの匂いだけはどうにかしてもらいたいわよね。
The stink coming from the Sakisara house grows worse every day, and the Suzumi family is at its wit's end.
あの草むらの中に死んだ猫でもいるんじゃないかしら。でも住んでいて気づかないのかしらね、あの匂いに。
まさかとは思うが、生ゴミをそのまま庭に捨てているんじゃあるまいな。
そんな、いくらなんでもそこまで。
いや、今の様子だとやりかねん。一日中ずっと雨戸を閉め切って何をやってるのかもわからない。どういう暮らしをしてるのやら。
お兄ちゃん、頭おかしくなっちゃったのかな。これヒロミ、そういう言い方はダメよ。
いや、あれは本当にちょっとどうすぎてる。ひょっとしたら変質狂か何かかもしれんな。
大丈夫なのそれ。
早く自覚して医者にでも行ってもらわんことにはなんともな。
The seconds crawl by, each tick of the clock compounding my agony. When I returned from the Ogai residence, I was greeted by a silent, empty home that had vanished without leaving any clue to her whereabouts. It isn't rare for her to go for walks at night. I've often gone with her. However, such outings always take place in the middle of the night when no one is around, and never last for more than 2 hours. Right now it's 5 in the morning. Soon the sky will begin to show the first light of dawn. Even if she left right before I returned, she'd still have been gone for almost half a day. I can't sleep. I can only wait in anguish. I tried to distract myself by painting more rooms, but I couldn't concentrate on the work. If I had known this would happen, I would have left the Ogai house sooner. I wish I hadn't wasted time on Koji. If Saya doesn't return, the thought makes me want to tear up my hair. After its long absence, the terror of true loneliness is too much to bear.
ただいま。
At last, the cowbell chimes at Saya's long-awaited "I'm home" rings out from the bottom of the stairs. As I jump out of my bed and release, all of the stress that had built up throughout the night is released in a wave that threatens to sweep me off my feet.
はあ、疲れた。やっぱり往復すると遠いな。
Saya sighs as she climbs the stairs.
さや、一体どこに？
My question trails off as I notice the thick bundle of papers that she's carrying under her arms.
それは
ふみのりのカルテとか手術の記録。今日は古巣の病院に行ってきたの。
My notes? You can just steal those. Saya drops her bundles on the floor, sending papers flying everywhere. Then pulls her favorite cushion over and collapses onto it, stretching luxuriously.
こんな夜中に T 台から歩いて戻ってきたのか。
ごめんね。本当はもっと早く帰れると思ってたんだけど、調べ出したらキリがなくて。
She says, skillfully gathering the scattered papers together.
結局全部持ち出してきちゃった。ああ、重かった。
Maybe it's just the exhaustion, but I'm not understanding a word Saya's saying.
だからそんなもの持ってきてどうするつもりなんだ。
どうするって、もちろん調べるのよ。うちで時間かけてじっくり。
She replies, holding one MRI photograph after another up to the light.
あら、何やってんだか。あ、これは要チェックかな。あとは、そうなんだ。なんだかな。
At first I was thinking she was just playing around, but the occasional mutters of, "Ah, better check this one. Oh, I see. Well, that was silly of them," and the like, as she separates photos into a growing pile beside her, makes me think that this might not be a joke after all.
君わかるのか、こういうの。
パパにいろいろと教わったから。なるほどね。そういうことを。
So he flashes me a grin, then returns to the papers.
これじゃいつまで経っても直せないよね。
直せないのか。
人間のお医者さんじゃね。
I can't tell if she's being serious.
私でもまだちょっと難しいかな。いろいろと試してからでないと。
She says offhandedly, even as her hands continue to shuffle papers. Okay, so yeah, she even admits she's not a human. Watching more closely, I realize that her eyes are scanning each page rapidly. So rapidly, in fact, that I was unable to notice it at first. Could Saya actually be reading my charts?
なあさや。
She answers coolly, looking up from the charts.
今日はもう疲れたし、寝ないか。
ふみのりがそうしたいならそうする。
Saya replies with a grin. Saya tosses aside the paper she was sorting, then leaps on me and begins to tear off my clothes. Let me do that really quick. I'm also gonna make a cut here so it's easier to find this when I'm editing. And there we go. Hi. Come on, just once before bed, okay? Contrary to her appearance, Saya's appetite for sex would put any adult to shame. You could even say it's a little unnatural. She's not just passionate, she also has unlimited stamina, making me wonder where her slender body gets all the energy. Never satisfied with letting me feast on her to my heart's content, she always uses me to pleasure herself until I'm forced to tap out. Hey Saya, don't you think it's unhealthy to be doing this every day? Huh? Are you sick? No, not me. My body's all grown up, but you're... Don't worry. She laughs playfully as she pushes me onto the bed, the familiar sweet sensation of her weight and skin rendering me helpless. But I am worried. We haven't used any contraception. To my astonishment, Saya is completely uninterested in safe sex. She doesn't just eschew protection. She even insists that I ejaculate inside of her. Surely she must know the risks, which can only mean that she wants to get pregnant. Fuminori, she whispers, staring straight in my eyes. You don't want me to have your children? How can I respond to that? It's not that. Your body is too small. Pregnancy is a serious burden, you know. That's not really something you have to worry about. Saya seems unsure how to reply, but not because she doesn't understand what I said. Rather, the bemused look on her face makes it seem as though I'm the one not getting it. But I know you're just thinking of me, she says suddenly, her smile glowing with innocence. I'm so happy. By the time I break the spell of her angelic smile, Saya has undone my belt and is removing my pants. Come on, Saya. Relax, she says teasingly as she touches my crotch and wraps her slender white fingers around my penis and testicles. Tonight I'll do it so you don't have to worry. The feeling of her willowy unblemished fingers embracing me is enough to fill me with twisted ecstasy and draw out my male instinct. Seeing my response, Saya brings her face to my groin and lovingly wraps her lips around the head of my penis. My hips jerk involuntarily at the unexpected intense shock of her sucking hard on such a sensitive area. Did that hurt? She asks, timidly looking up at me as she soothingly strokes my shaft. No, I'm fine. Where did Saya learn how to pleasure a man so well? I can't believe the precision and skill of her ministrations. Her sinuous fingers are like snakes coiled around my manhood, their sensual undulations drawing desire forth from my loins. As if all 10 of her fingers weren't enough to drown me in pleasure, next she adds her lips and tongue. The mind-blowing pleasure from this new stimulation instantly threatens to push me over the edge. A damp heat, different from that of her womb, presses down on me from all directions. Looking down, I see my lust filling her tiny mouth, stretching the graceful lines from her cheeks and jaw so far that I fear she might break. The sight makes me worry that she's pushing herself too hard, but her tongue continues to devour me like a kitten desperately sucking on her mother's teat. As I watch, I begin to feel that I'm violating Saya's innocent, unsullied face. The feeling of breaking a taboo further increases my perverted ecstasy. In every man lurks the dark desire to spoil that which is beautiful. Saya's bewitching body, able to drive me mad every night, is perfectly designed to draw out such savage lust. Saya? I can't hold it anymore. I'll come any second now. But where? When the moment comes, what will I do with this thing in Saya's mouth? Hey, wait, I'm going to... I try to pull out, but Saya doesn't let me. She grabs my thigh and doubles the intensity of her sucking as if she's trying to pull me even deeper into her throat. I'm worried about her, but my body is at its limit. My pent-up seed. I unleash my pent-up seed deep into Saya's throat. What have I done? I feel my panic rise within me. Regardless of the situation, I shouldn't have ejaculated into her mouth. What if she chokes on it? Saya, however, pays no heed to my distress. Still clinging to my waist like a predator unwilling to relinquish its prey, he starts swallowing effortlessly like someone dying of hunger. What is she swallowing? The answer is obvious. Every last drop of the passion that I just disgorged into her mouth. This is the first time I've ever had a girl do this to me. To be honest, I'm speechless with shock. I've always been prejudiced against fellatio, thinking it to be something that perverted sadistic men force women to do, but Saya... that was good. She looked up at me, answering my confusion by smiling like she just pulled the greatest plank of her life. Her small tongue darts out of her lips to lick away the last milky remnants around her mouth. That tongue was just licking my... I think we're good to... re-enable voices. The thought sends a worrying jolt of pleasure to my brain.
これだったら海のりだって心配ないでしょ。
いや、まあ。
What am I supposed to say to that?
ねえ、ダメだった？こういうのだと気持ちよくない？
Hearing the sudden nervousness inside his voice, I hesitantly stammer.
そんなことない。十分に良かった。
It felt so good that I thought I'd go crazy, but I can't say that, can I?
でもさや、何もあんなもの飲み込まなくたって。
そんな。あれはさやにちょうだいよ。
Suddenly distraught, Saya clings to me like a child who has just had her candy stolen.
海のりのは一滴だって残さずに欲しい。さやの中に出してほしいの。
中にって。
So Saya really does want to bear my child? I'm not averse to the idea. I still think it might be too early, of course, but there isn't much point in worrying about my reputation now. Assuming that Saya and I will be left alone, I even welcome it. However, that only explains her appetite for normal sex. I still don't know why she wants to swallow, of all things. Well, I suppose that's what's impure or taboo differs from person to person, and I can't simply apply normal values to Saya.
海のりは嫌？
She gazes up at me pleadingly. How can I resist?
嫌なんかじゃないさ。さやさえそれでいいのなら、僕だって。
Saya smiles with relief and burrows contently into my chest.
海のり大好き。
She purrs softly. With her body draped over mine, I become even more aware of how light and delicate she is. Can this tiny girl and I really live as husband and wife? I feel a pang of self-loathing at the question. How can I still be afraid after all that's happened? Saya's feelings are so earnest, how can I not accept them? I need to resolve once and for all to rid myself of the useless trappings of morality. Saya and I are all that matters. There's no point in worrying about what others think anymore. Although I suppose I should still talk to Saya's guardian, of course. I need to find Dr. Ogai as soon as possible. By the time I drift asleep in exhaustion, in comforting embrace. All doubts about Saya's actions have vanished from my mind. Whatever the case, all that matters is that she's returned to me. Okay, I think I'll keep going for a little bit longer. 2 o'clock for Suzume Yosuke. This is the most fulfilling time of day. After seeing his wife and daughter off, taking care of the morning chores and eating a leisurely lunch, it's finally time to sit down at his easel. He's not a particularly popular painter, and he would only hold an exhibition if he were hurting for money. However, the design work he does on the side ensures that there's always enough to support his lifestyle. Alongside the salary his wife earns, working for a magazine, they're able to pay their mortgage, send their daughter to school, and still have plenty left over. Yosuke's life is perfect, leisurely and absent of want. He loves this house, considering it to be the symbol of his success. When he mows the lawn, polishes the windows and floors, and cleans the kitchen, toilet, and bath, he feels the same joy as he does when washing his own body. Just as he knows the length of his fingernails and the time since his last meal, he also knows everything about his home's condition. The status of every door, the freshness of every flower, the amount of ice in the ice tray, every last detail. This is his pride, and when he sits in a studio, smelling the turpentine and knowing that each element of his house is in perfect order, he feels the ultimate satisfaction. While trying to find the right combination of paints on his palette, he suddenly feels thirsty, but soon remembers that there isn't much orange juice left in the refrigerator. In fact, it's also about time to stock up on the bath additive and powdered soap. He should get everything at the supermarket when he goes to shop for dinner, but it will probably be quite heavy. Now then, where should I leave off to go shopping? As he ponders this dilemma, he heads downstairs to the kitchen. Just then, a breath of air tickles the back of his neck, bringing him to a halt in the middle of the hallway. A breeze? Impossible. Every window in the house is closed. Yosuke shut them himself during his morning cleaning. Yosuke enters the living room, searching for the source of the breeze. Something stinks. It's the same pungent smell of fetid swampland that emanates from the Sakisara house. The window facing the yard next door is open, its curtains billowing loosely in the gentle breeze. There's a hole in the glass next to a lock. It looks strange, like it was melted by some chemical instead of broken. Someone must have reached through the hole to unlock the window. Yosuke stands paralyzed, his heart pounding with anger and fear. He listens carefully but hears nothing. Perhaps the intruder has already finished his business and left. But a burglar wouldn't have left the room untouched, would he? Maybe he heard Yosuke coming and hid somewhere nearby. Yosuke realizes that his still wet palette knife is in his right hand. He must have forgotten to put it aside before going downstairs. He stares numbly at the knife for a moment, then decides that it's not enough protection. Instead, he grabs the ashtray sitting on top of the table. Made of thick, solid glass, it's big and heavy enough to serve as a weapon. The home that he had thought of as a part of himself now seems utterly alien. Keenly aware of the thumping of his heart, Yosuke looks around the living room and sees little that could be used as a hiding place. The intruder must have either gone to the guest room or through the dining room to the kitchen. The kitchen is close to the stairs. If there had been movement, Yosuke would have noticed it when he came down, which means that the guest room is the most likely place. He shuffles over to the guest room door and prepares to slide it open. But what is that stench? Could the breeze alone carry something so foul? It's as if the odor is coming from inside the room. He readies his ashtray and throws open the door. The straw-matted Japanese-style room is empty. There's only a closet, but no one could fit in there. So the intruder already left. Yosuke relaxes, the exhaustion of sudden relief coming over him. And that's when something seizes his ankle. The instant he freezes in shock, his leg is yanked out from under him, sending him crashing to the floor. Stars explode behind his eyes as his head smacks against the door rail. The hand, if it could even be called that, wraps around Yosuke's ankle. It sends all the way back to beneath the living room sofa. There's barely 5 centimeters between the sofa and the floor. Whatever is hiding there, it can't possibly be human. Before the screaming Yosuke can regain his footing, countless hand-like appendages seize his arms and legs, rendering him helpless. As the hideous voice burbles in his ear, something cold and soft crawls atop him. Yosuke can't even scream, his terror is so great. Thin tube-like appendages penetrate his ears and nose, wriggling deep into his skull. Right before the sensation draws him mad, Yosuke loses consciousness. Koji says, his humble bow concealing a surprise at the doctor's youth. Even without light makeup, she wouldn't look a day over 30. She must be quite talented to be a leading neurosurgeon at such a young age. Anyway, let's save really quickly. And that's where we're gonna leave it off for today's episode. If you made it this far, thank you for watching, and I will see you next time when we continue with more Saya no Ura. Until then, bye!